This video is about the Maldives as you have never seen it before. I bet you have never seen these kind of waves in the Maldives, waves that look like Indonesian waves. I bet you don't know why resorts are so freaking weird. And I bet you've never seen the behind the scenes of how people are restoring reefs. Reefs that contribute to waves, to wildlife, and to all we love about the Maldives. And in general, some history and facts that you didn't know about these islands that on the surface kind of just look like paradise and like something that is so cute and it's such a nice vacation, but actually have a lot of depth. And yes, even though we're gonna cover some surf spots that are a bit less known and that provide a bit less common conditions, I think I should start by the obvious places because yeah, they are amazing and they are perfect and they were like this. These amazing waves, they break on top of coral shelves. And corals, as you might know, are facing a really tough time nowadays with all of these climate events. And that was precisely the point behind the project we were trying to cover. The coral planters.
It's a video.
Yeah, it's a video, huh? So some cool stuff you didn't know about corals. They're not plants. They're animals. Actually, they're not even animals in the sense of animals that we know. They are a colony of a lot of animals, each one being a polyp, and each polyp having a mouth. That's really cool. When you have the right conditions and the right people to do it, you can kind of create an ecosystem from scratch, from nothing. That's what they did here. Over the course of 4 years, they've planted these corals in there, created colonies, and a bunch of different animals that didn't exist here came about to live alongside these corals. So that's a sign that the work is working. Work is working. Sorry, my English is not as good as my Portuguese. And another cool fact is that although they may cover 1% of the ocean, corals harbor 25% of all the biodiversity in the seas. So yeah, pretty important to go and plant these guys a bit deeper from the place they were collected from. Wow, this phrase was horrible, but let's go. Because they found that in deeper waters, it's a bit colder, which means that they can survive bleaching events a bit better. So let's go into the water.
Yeah.
So I have a bunch of fancy stuff. I have this guy, fancy stuff. It's actually a crappy camera, but it looks fancy. I have this guy's vintage and stuff, but my best thing for diving right now. It's the socks.
What we take off from the corals out in the ocean will regrow. So what we're doing is we're just duplicating the coral that we have. And we're just going to attach these onto the frame just here. Hopefully in about 3 to 4 years time this frame will be full of lovely healthy coral. And then we're going to outplant it to about 10, 11 meters deep.
Such a striking difference to see how much life there is on this tiny coral patch compared to the sandy parts that basically are bare with life. But even though this project is so amazing in so many ways, it has a weird shadow because it is placed at a resort, a 5-star resort. And 5-star resorts, I didn't know, but they are very weird.
I owe nothing to no one, so I can say this. Surfing the hotel's wave, which is basically in the hotel, you have to pay to get a boat from there to go like 200 meters down with the boat and surf. You can basically jump with the board, but it's kinda sketchy. If you want to go to Sultan, which is close by, you pay $300 and something dollars per person. No other boats apart from the hotel's boats can dock. So to surf, what we have to do is basically we paddle out with boards, get a ride from the middle of the ocean, and then we can go, but not docking, which is quite odd. Also, have you noticed resort people? They are so fun. It's kind of a parallel universe, to be honest. Everything is so expensive. Fortunately, we're not paying because we're doing this noble work for the world and to enjoy a resort without having to pay for it, because I won't. There is good food. A coffee would cost $18. $18 for a cup of coffee. $18 for a cup of mango juice from the pack, not actual mango. If you want mango, it's like 20 something dollars. In here, no doesn't exist. So whenever you ask a question that the answer is not possible, like you cannot do that, they don't tell you that you can't. They just say something else to never say no to you. So you live in this very smiley bubble of uncertainty.
Come on, it's such a weird, encapsulating, imprisoning reality. Especially when you compare it to the freedom that we felt on that boat when we were exploring those many different waves. But I think the pivotal moment of that freedom was the first afternoon when we arrived at our secret spot that I won't reveal, but maybe you can visit next year. And we saw this. as we were surfing this wave and the sun was setting in this beautiful afternoon, all I could think about was actually the next day, because it was supposed to be like twice as much energy in the ocean, and I'd never seen this spot with this many beautiful waves. I couldn't really think of what was going to happen the next day, and it kind of made me a bit nervous, to be honest. What would we encounter? But I think I'm going to give you the pleasure of watching those waves a little later in the video. Because also, even though this was a very special session for the Maldives, it is still a wave. It is still something we know from these kind of places. But what about its history? Where did it come from? Well, I had to do a little digging. And what I found out really changed the way I'm gonna visit this place for the next few years. Because I basically realized that some researchers think that there were people there living in these scattered islands across the ocean since like the Mesopotamian civilization period. So basically since the dawn of civilization, there would be people scattered across these islands, having that influence from the Indian subcontinent. That's why Hindu was the first religion in this place until commerce in the Indian Ocean started booming. And when we think about how, for example, the Portuguese started to come to this coast, and we think and talk about a globalization period in which these Indian Ocean civilizations opened themselves to the world, we sometimes forget that it was already a booming place. It was already somewhere in which exchange and commerce and economy was prospering a lot. Sometimes these new peoples that came from Europe, what they did was impose some tariffs on people, and that actually diminished the commerce and the globalized world that they were living within their own little world, which was not that little, because the Indian Ocean is not that little. Then the Portuguese came and they tried to impose Christianity on people. They were kind of kicked out, and which I think it's fair enough. I don't think people should go about the places trying to make them think of something else. But it just made me realize that the Maldives that I knew, the Maldives that I was looking at when I was traveling through these islands, through these atolls, is a way richer environment than the one I thought of previously. The idea I had in my head of paradise is only like that because I have so many layers in front of me. And that made me think about how every project has layers in front of it. And those layers drew me back on what I had lived with the coral planters. Because this next place that we were going to dive into, literally, is nothing but different layers of interpretation. Just down there, there's a spot called Shark Point. The name kind of says that there might be sharks in there. One of the species that swims there regularly is tiger sharks. We've seen a bunch of sharks in here, but tiger sharks are something different altogether. They are one of the 3 species that always considered to be dangerous to humans and stuff. Even though I think swimming with them would be wonderful. I've seen a bunch of clips of people that kind of know what they're doing, and all seems to go fine. With that being said, it's a big animal. I think we need to have a lot of respect for them, and that makes me kind of scared and kind of excited. I guess that's why we're here, no? So there were not that many sharks. I saw either a bull shark or a lemon shark way in the deep, but I don't think that counts. But this place is as layered as it gets, because it shows that human nature interaction has many forms. In one way, it's so interesting that you can dive with sharks right on top of a capital city of a country. That's like incredible, it's mind-blowing. The amount of stingrays and of species of stingrays that were present in there was absolutely crazy. On the other hand, it only happens because there is human nature interaction, because that's where the fisheries deposit the remains of that fish. And that's very weird. That's an eerie reality to think about. It's kind of like when you're watching Lion King and baby lions go to the elephant cemetery and you see all of these carcasses, but also this life. And that's created by humans. But on the other hand, we cannot say that human nature interaction is always bad. In fact, I don't think that there is a way for conservation in any way that ignores human nature interaction, because nowadays we cannot enclose ourselves from interacting with it. In most places, human and nature will cross their paths. And so I hope that they do it in a good way. The coral planters, in my opinion, are exactly an example of what human nature interaction looks like when it's done well. They use the resources of a weird hotel, yes, maybe the hotel is doing some weird stuff, for sure, but what they do on a small scale is take people out into what conservation done well looks like. All those corals, all that life, right in front of what people can visit. That's basically humans interacting with nature in a way that is good for both of them. And that was amazing. Seeing how the biologists work, seeing that this place is not as perfect as it seemed to be, it's not as plain as it seemed to be, but even so, having such a great time in the Maldives gave me a sense that we don't need picture-perfect places to feel good. If anything, knowing the reality behind what we're seeing gives us a possibility to wonder way more, even if inside our minds when we are traveling, when we are on vacation. And that's why it feels even more special to finally show you the session of the trip. A session that I hope repeats itself this May when we're back there. Just look at this wave. Come on. coming back on May to the Maldives to experience maybe a little bit of that all over again. And if you want to join, just comment Maldives on the comment section, because yeah, I'll speak to you and it's gonna be amazing. But regardless of that, keep your eyes open when you travel. You might just find that the places you are visiting are way more special than you think. See you next time.